Oh my gosh, we're live. Look at that. Books, books, books. I cannot believe it. You know, this show's called Artists and Authors. I'm Mike Briggs, the host of the show. I'm just sitting here taking the place of Carol Love Forbes, who's going to come back someday. We are sure of it. Now, I like to talk to authors. I like to hear about their books and their stories, but more, I like to talk about the process. I always say anybody can write a book, but very few people can finish writing a book. So we've asked some experts on today, Joan Newcomb and Carren McDaniel. Carren McDaniel and Joan Newcomb. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
I'm getting jumbled. Joan Newcomb. Now, you both have been published. You're both authors. But Joan's always telling me something about collaboration. She's always talking about that. What's your guys' story?
Well, she's been a writer much longer than I have, and she's written many novels and children's books. And I was taking a class from her, and one day she told me about this character she had, Agatha Ostrich from the FFFI. Did I get enough F's in there? And I said, oh, well, you know, maybe I could do a picture for you. So I sent her some pictures over, and she liked them. And so we, since then, have been working together. And on her series, the Agatha Ostrich series, which are mysteries, and I illustrate, and she writes those.
Here's the covers.
Yeah.
Now, you illustrated these three. Joan
Yes.
wrote the books.
Yes.
And you've illustrated them. So the visual of Agatha Ostrich, who came up with the idea in the head? I mean, you invented the character.
She just glided over what really was remarkable, which is that at 9 o'clock at night, I think it was on my computer, I described the character. And she replied, let me work on that. I thought weeks or months later, I would get something. At 11 o'clock that night, your memory is off on this. At 11 o'clock that night, the first cover, the first picture of that character came back, and that was the character in my mind. The only thing that changed after that is I saw her white, skinny legs. We kept thinking she needs more toothpick hair. And then on each book, she's changed the hairstyle slightly. But that was my first experience with somebody seeing who I saw. And in other characters since then, she's either seen my character or I've seen her version of my character, and immediately that was my character. That's very unusual, very fortunate.
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily happens in collaboration. So there's more than just somebody adding, you enrich each other. We're very lucky in that.
Well, I see so many people who want to have total control. They don't want anybody else putting their hands in, but you're saying no.
Oh,
Let 'em
Lord,
in.
no.
Yeah.
I think it enriches it, like you said, when you have more input.
Right.
And then when I decided to write a novel, she edits for me, but it's more than editing. She'll go through and question, why is your character doing that? And then I realize I need to explain it better. So from her getting her point of view, because you have the vision in your head what the story's doing, but if it doesn't come out that way to other people, then as an author you have to fix that.
I say sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. So,
well, we know what we mean.
Right, you know what you mean.
But if the other people aren't seeing that, then and that's where we work together really well.
I've been reading so many books on the movie industry and the Broadway show industry where people put on plays, and I realize how little each one person does. There's so many people in every aspect. So why not author? Of course, authors. That's Joan's message to us all the time.
The way we work, it's a very collaborative effort.
I would caution one thing. If you have a really fragile ego, don't do this.
Don't do that, yeah.
Don't do that, because then you're not going to handle it well when your partner says, how come this character doesn't come in until third of the way through the book, and it's a pivotal character?
Not even introduced.
If you can't go back and say, I have to think about it. Now, you might have a good reason, and you can come back with it, but if you're not prepared to have your ego challenged by just thoughtful, creative comments and questions, work alone.
Yep, just work
Yeah, it's
along.
not criticism, it's critiquing.
Yeah.
You make the way it works really the best. In fact, she wrote one book, she had it completely finished for years. And so I read it, and I get back to her and I said, you know, the protagonist's boyfriend, then eventual husband, I'm like, I don't like him at all. You need to make him more likable because it's like, I just soon bump him off. But he's important in the book. And so she went back and, took that advice and tweaked it, it just makes it better.
By the way, if you don't get a critique or someone to look at your book, there's an ultimate critic out there, and that's the buyer of books. And when I read a book, I post a little,
Oh, good for you.
always a couple sentences at least, I like this book or didn't make sense. I never do bad ones, but I leave those blank. But I probably should do some. But yeah, I better let somebody read it. A bunch of people read it, I would imagine.
Yeah, and we're always looking for feedback in any of the books that we've written, whatever genre.
My master's thesis, I had hundreds of people read it, including the professors. And sure enough, in the end, there's a little mistake here, a little mistake there. Huh?
Yeah, it's funny how we've gone through it over and over and over again, and still there's a spot where we have
My
two
theory
paragraphs.
is that no matter how many times you edit, over a period of years, you'll go to a page and you go, it could be small, but
Yeah.
you say, how did I not see it? We don't see. And that's why new eyes are important. That's
New
why
eyes are important,
if
right?
you,
Yes.
for people out there who take writing classes, if you're not prepared to have the other people in a class and a teacher or facilitators give you honest feedback, you don't belong in the class.
Don't belong in the class.
Stay there, because the rest of us leave a class, can't wait to get back to our computers, because we now want to see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I've been in classes with the writers who, oh no, my thing's perfect. Well, why are you in a class then?
Yeah.
Now, are there groups out there in existence that people could join and to get some of this kind of help,
Yes.
collaboration?
Yes.
There are writing groups out there. You just have to, find them through adult school. Offers some creative writing courses or different things like writing memoirs, which is different, of course, than writing a novel or fiction, nonfiction.
There's a romance writers groups.
Yeah.
There are fantasy writers groups. Part of it is simply reaching out to find out. And there are classes that you can pay for. Try to avoid those. Classes that you can take where other people have same interests. They're out there.
So you can get a group with your specific interests. So
Yeah.
I write about.
Or you can do a group like I have right now where it's everything, it's fiction. It's much harder to conduct that kind of group if you're doing all westerns or romances or nonfiction. It's much harder to do that. But you also get input from people who are not readers of that type of fiction, whatever it is, or nonfiction.
Might be
you
good,
get,
might
you
be
get
good.
that. That's also again.
People don't come up with a predisposition or a
Exactly.
notion.
But
Right.
again, you got to leave your ego at home.
Yeah, you leave the ego at home. So now, when you say group, I automatically think Facebook. But groups aren't just on Facebook; they exist in real life too.
Some people actually like to meet in real life. Yeah.
I would think that's a way to find a group. Maybe Facebook. There's a Facebook group
It
for
could be,
romantic
certainly.
writers and stuff like
Right.
that. Now, the group doesn't especially have to be in your town. You could be all over the world now, right?
That's
day
the
and age, you
advantage
certainly
of
can.
that's the advantage of the media. In that sense, you can do that.
Yeah.
But there is something really great about listening to someone read, watching body language. You pick up things. Both things give you great advantages, and take advantage of all of them.
Thing. Yeah, I like to hear about different people's processes. That's why it'd be great. What's your process? Why, do this or I do that? You do a sketch, an outline, or you just start writing. And amazing how everybody has a different process.
Well, yeah, and it kind of depends. Sometimes she'll write. She's got a couple more stories that I haven't illustrated yet. And she'll say, what animal would you like to draw? Well, how can I work that in? And so then, we did a porcupine, I think, the porcupine nurse. And I said, I kind of have this vision. And I sent her the picture, and she got that character into it. So sometimes we work that way. Sometimes it's an idea, and you just get started. Sometimes it's an outline. And
Well, you were talking earlier. I didn't mean to be rude, but I thought, well, maybe she just doesn't just illustrate the covers. Maybe there's illustrations inside.
There
And sure
are.
enough, all the way through the book, there's illustrations that are just my favorite. What do you call the ostrich?
Agatha.
Agatha Christie Peabody. She's the first female agent of the FBI, the furried, fanged, and feathered beard. And she's kind of an egotist, and she's not totally likable.
Okay.
Which is a good thing to have in a
Just so you
protagonist,
know,
Now, and these books are written for who?
young adults and junior high and so on.
Yeah.
yeah. At 3rd grade and up would read them.
The difference is it's kind of like Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Remember Dudley Do-Right and Natasha? And the little kids got the very basic humor, but there was a whole lot that slipped through that only older readers get. And I like layers.
Yeah.
And so those things appeal to younger kids, but some of the things that are said and done are going to be missed by them until they're older.
The books on the screen are written by Joan Newcomb and illustrated by Carren McDaniel. Do you expect people are going to start calling you, Carren, and say, I need illustrations too?
Well, I have worked with other authors, and I am open to that because I love to draw. That was my background. And then when I thought, I think I took a short story class or something, and I started writing, and I loved that. So this is perfect for me because I can combine the two and do some illustrating, some writing, and
I know we're way past time. I'm getting signals and stuff here, but this show is authors and artists. I mean, this is art. What's your medium? How do you create these images?
well, the process that I use is a sketch first, pencil drawing, and then I'll use like a Sharpie to outline it. Then I scan it into my computer and clean that up.
Okay.
Print it out, colorize it with color pencils,
Okay.
put that back into the computer and clean that up. And then I finally have a finished version.
That's an incredible process.
It's a long process, but they come out so much better.
Yeah. I want to talk to you guys for hours, but we can't. But we have a few seconds left. What do you guys? What have we left out? What do you guys want to say?
Don't spend your life saying, someday I'm going to write a book. Or I've got a great idea for a book. Here, you write it, and then we'll both take credit for it. Get off your butts, get to work, and start writing.
Well, speaking of somebody else writing it for you, if you write terribly, you don't have a mastery of the language, and you can't spell and everything, that's okay, isn't it? Then you can have somebody else help you with it.
Well, yeah, that's part of the process, the editor process, when they come in. And I'm terrible with commas. I never can figure out where to put a comma. But Joan saves me.
Yeah.
So that's part of the process, too, because I just,
Yeah, so
I could write a sentence, but I don't know if I should put a comma in it or not.
Joan's message is don't worry about all that. Just start writing.
Yeah,
truly.
My first career, I was a classical guitarist. You know what I did all day, every day?
Played guitar?
Played classical guitar. If you're a writer, what you should be doing all day, every day is writing. Every time you get a break or a minute, you should be writing. So
I would add one thing, because what you said about classical guitar, which is one of my passions, you do it every day, whether you feel like doing it or not. Some people set aside a certain number of hours. Other people are more, fluid with doing that. But it isn't something you do later.
Right.
You do
Do
it
it
all the
now.
time. Whether you have an idea or not, you sit down. Our styles are very different. I've never outlined anything. I don't outline term papers. I write the best outlines on the planet for theses, because I write them after I've written the paper. But that's not how everybody is
Right.
creative.
Right.
And creativity means you do what works for you. Just because books tell you this is how. No, there is no one how.
no one way. Okay,
There isn't one way. Find out what works for you.
right. But just do it.
Do
Start
it.
doing it.
Do
All
it.
right. Our guests are Joan Newcomb and Carren McDaniel. We're going to have you guys back because this is the most exciting talk I've had here in a long time. So it really is.
You
This is
are in
really
bad
good.
shape.
We'll be back with more Cinderella talk right after this.